Now away from Canberra to Taiwan, which, like many of its neighbours, is struggling to deal with increasing welfare obligations as its population ages. By the year 2025, the island state estimates that 1 in 5 of its people will be elderly. What's more, Taiwan's economy has been struggling in recent years, even as China powers ahead, and that means more people have fallen on hard times. In the second of our series of stories from Taipei this week, China correspondent Wei Fern Tay reports.
Little has changed in this historical part of Taipei. Rent is relatively cheap, which makes it more affordable for those Taiwanese struggling financially.
对，所以我们在这边的族群比较多是低的收入。
There are more low-income families here, single parents, and grandparents who've been given the responsibility of raising their grandchildren because the children's parents have divorced and left the area because of work.
也可能因为工作的关系就离开这个区域。
The outreach program this church provides helps people like Zheng Yuyuan. The mother of 2 fell on hard times when she was forced to quit her job a decade ago to care for her ill husband. Zheng Yuyuan hasn't been able to get a job in accounting after her husband passed away and has been forced to drift between temporary jobs. She's worked at a takeaway stall and cared for the elderly. She now looks after babies for around 760 Australian dollars a month.
It's quite difficult landing a job. Employers don't want older workers like us. They want the young graduates because their salaries will be lower. Those of us who are older with more experience want to be paid more.
Zheng Yuyuan's children are now in university and continue to receive welfare from Taiwan's government. Last year, they were among the 639,000 people to get government assistance. The number of people seeking help has risen by 131% between 2011 and 2012, partially because the Taiwanese government relaxed its criteria for welfare eligibility. Families classified as being sandwiched between low-income and middle class now qualify for official assistance too. But Chen Su-chun from the Ministry of Interior says only half the number of people who fit into this new category have applied.
In
Taiwan, we basically depend on family and friends first. People usually turn to the government as a last resort.
With a budget of 15 billion Australian dollars this year, social welfare has surpassed education to become the #1 spending priority for Taiwan. But Taiwan's government had no choice but to set aside more money for a broader social welfare system. Alongside a slowing economy, its population is aging rapidly.
By the year 2017, the elderly will make up 14% of Taiwan's population. That is set to increase to around 20% by 2025. That's a rather high proportion because 1 in 5 people in Taiwan will be elderly. That's low compared to Japan, but the rate at which our ageing population is growing is the same as Japan's.
In the past, an immediate family member tended to step in and help, and so their financial circumstances would be considered as well when determining a person's eligibility. But the government has been forced to act because families are not as tight-knit as before. However, strict rules still remain to discourage dependence on government handouts, and some social workers say it's the right approach.
The strict criteria has its downsides because some people would rather not work. There are also those who will specifically look for jobs that pay cash so they can continue to receive the subsidies. We understand the government's considerations as well as that of other charity organisations. There are people who take advantage of the assistance available. That's why the criteria is so strict.
Taiwan's social safety net has succeeded in reducing the gap between the rich and poor over the years. But its expansion during these lean economic times puts a greater strain on the government's finances. It's a challenge that will continue as Taiwan ages.